There's just something scary about small towns, rural towns, forest, backwood areas. There's something creepy about it. And when you throw in horror movies and that subgenre, now you got a recipe for some truly creepy films that you need to see. So today we're going to talk about 10 rural horror movies that are going to make you be thankful that you're stuck in your city traffic. How's it going, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another episode here at Figure Out Films. I'm your host, as always, Chris, and I am so excited to talk about this top 10 today because there is nothing more scary to me besides snakes and all those other, creature things. It's the outdoors. It's small rural towns. Just something about it. I'm a city boy. I grew up in the city near Chicago, and I even lived in the big city, and I'm not gonna lie, I'll take city traffic and the street crime and all that besides driving through a small rural town or going through the woods. It's just not my thing. If you're new to the channel, you like videos like this and other top 10s, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join in. And if you're returning, thank you again for the continued support. Let's keep growing. Let's keep getting that subscriber count going. And if you'd like to see more top 10s like that, let me know which kind you'd like down in the comments below. Now, to get started, I want to go with a more recent horror movie. I think this is one that really rifled a lot of people's feathers. This is the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, when we talk about rural horror, backcountry horror, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just so synonymous with that, but I'm really gonna change the caveat to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022. This movie really pissed a lot of people off. This is a Netflix exclusive movie. I'm still pissed that that's the case, but this movie is so awesome. This is a movie about a bunch of Gen Z millennials coming from the big cities to the town that the Sawyer family was living in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. This is a legacy sequel to the original Tobe Hooper original, and they try to transform the abandoned small town into like a millennial utopia. It's kind of giving the middle finger to the more liberal ideals, but they kind of deserve it, these characters, and Leatherface returns to defend his turf. Now, again, if I am some 20 to 30 something year old with some money and I want to make a new establishment, I'm not going to a small rural town in Texas. That just sounds terrible to me. All right, I might just build a building somewhere and have like a really cool, nice, apartment complex with all my friends if that were going to do that. But this is a movie that's truly about gentrification and the horrors of that in a small rural town. You hear that in like big cities and things like that, but to put that in a small rural town in Texas is pretty entertaining. Leatherface in this movie oddly feels like he's serving justice in some ways, and I kind of like it. This movie's very dark, grimy, and gritty, and gross, but I absolutely love it. I think this movie gets slept on. This movie does not get talked about nearly enough, and it's truly one of the best Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, in my opinion, as well. Coming in at number 2 is a movie from the early 2000s. I love this movie. This is Eli Roth's 2002 Cabin Fever. Cabin Fever, you take a bunch of annoying college something year kids and you go to a cabin to drink and then stir up trouble with the locals. It sounds like a recipe for an entertaining horror movie, but I'm not gonna lie, this movie is also very gross and grimy. They're outdoors. The outdoor areas of the cabin do not look appealing at all. Why would you want to leave your beautiful college campus you're paying so many thousands of dollars at the university to stay at, and you want to get out and go to nature? To me, that makes no sense. But for the people in this movie, they absolutely love it. Basically, these campers go to this cabin, and it's just grimy and gross, and they all each get an infection that slowly chips away at their skin, and it starts gooing and chipping off and slime infested and scratching off skin and bone. It's so grotesque and gross, but it's actually really entertaining and funny at the same time. Eli Roth manages to balance comedic timing with this with some truly eye-opening gore and special effects here. Again, when I talk about like the horrors of like locals in rural towns, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but in this movie there is a very uncomfortable scene with a store clerk with a rifle with the college kids. If you've seen this movie, you absolutely know it as well. I highly recommend you check this movie out. This is a early 2000s gem that needs more love. Now, when we talk about backcountry rural horror, a lot of times these characters are going through a road trip. They're taking a shortcut through a small town and things like that. I like to stay on the interstate if it's me personally, mostly because this movie scarred me growing up. That is the 2000s remake from 2006, The Hills Have Eyes. Now, we could talk about the Wes Craven original classic. I'm not too crazy about it, but the 2006 remake and its sequel, The Hills Have Eyes, is truly where I think the franchise really shines. Now, we follow a father and a family going through a road trip with a newborn, and they actually take a break off the path, and then they run into some local deformed people who, I guess you could call them hillbillies, I guess, in some way. They basically are cannibals as well, and they're trying to kidnap the son. And the father and his family kind of get brutally tortured and taken advantage of, and he basically has to survive and save his family. This is a hard-hitting, gruesome horror movie. This is a mean film, but man, it is so well made, and it is so entertaining in like the weirdest way possible. This is a movie that scarred me for a little bit about wanting to go through those back towns because you never know what you're gonna run into. Now that's a little stereotypical, but for like the horror subgenre, it really nailed the subgenre where it really captures the horror of it. The mutants in this movie have really great special makeup effects on here. They look truly grotesque and freaky, and I think it kind of carries some of the love from the original, but kind of like updates it, and I think makes it for the better in this one as well. So if you have not seen The Hills Have Eyes, the remake I think is the way to go. You could watch the original. I find it just somewhat a little bit more tame in comparison now, and maybe a little bit boring, and I say that very cautiously. This remake is absolutely gutted. It is so good. You've got to see it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you prefer the original, or do you like the updated Hills Have Eyes? Coming in at number 4, this is not necessarily like a rural horror movie, but this is more like a isolated horror movie. Again, it's away from like large civilizations and like the city. This is more like on an island, and this is more about paganism and the religion of that than just like country people. I'm talking about the 1973 The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man, starring Christopher Lee, is like such a cult pagan horror movie. It's basically the movie that influenced Ari Aster's Midsommar in some respects. This movie is so interesting. It's kind of like entertaining and like cheery, and like, oh, they're, pagan flowers and things like that, and like folk music and folklore and stuff. And then it becomes super sadistic and twisted and cult-like and just pagan, and it's freaky and scary. It's just a slow burn cult horror movie. This is a good movie. If you have not seen the original Wicker Man, not the Nicolas Cage remake, but the original Wicker Man, it is truly a very dark and disturbing movie. It's super entertaining though, and it has this feeling of like, dread. There's no like jump scares or anything like this. You just get this vibe that like, this is weird. I don't like this. I want to get away from here. And you can't. And then when the ending happens, you just go, oh shoot, that sucks. This is why I don't want to leave my house. This is why I want a high-rise apartment, near Lakeshore in Chicago, which, I can't blame you there. But The Wicker Man, 1973. This is one of those movies where you want to stay indoors and not venture too far from home. Coming up next is a recent horror movie. I actually just watched it the other night and immediately kind of thought about it in some ways, like, ooh, must have sucked back then when there wasn't like that many large cities and people were scattered in small villages. This is a movie from 2023. This is a French horror movie. This is called The Vortilac. The Vortilac is a sort of vampire folk horror movie. It's super weird, it's super dreary, and it kind of matches the vibe of The Wicker Man in some ways, being like dreamlike in some ways. Basically, we follow this aristocrat Frenchman who's carrying a message for the king, and he is attacked by some people, and he basically is seeking refuge in this small town. This small town family hosts him and takes care of him, but he starts to realize that the patriarch of this family doesn't even seem human, and in fact looks like a skeleton, a dead person. And when you do see the makeup and practical effects of this patriarch father, your jaw is gonna drop on the floor. This movie is almost surreal in some respects. Basically, The Vortilac is a movie about a patriarch who suffers a curse that's sort of like a vampire, but instead of feasting on the flesh of the living, it's attacking its family, the people closest to him. Now, the aristocrat protagonist that we follow, we're just seeing everything from his point of view, all the crazy, gross things that are happening. This is a miserable village to live in. The people are just a little too crazy for my liking. But what I love about it is it just feels like a Hammer horror movie in some respects, like a more modern interpretation of a Hammer horror, which I absolutely love. But it also, again, it's a little slow. It has a slow start, but once it gets going in the second and third act, it just does not stop. And like the gore effects and like the creepy horror, antics that you see in this, you're gonna be like, what the heck is going on? I have to recommend The Vortilac. Coming up next is a 1970s creature feature. This is a movie called Frogs. Frog stars Sam Elliott and Ray Milland, which I absolutely love. And basically, Sam Elliott is basically in this small plantation like island, and who's in charge of the manor there is Ray Milland and his family, and they're just trying to host a summer weekend together. But Sam Elliott starts to realize that there's something going on with the nature on this small island. This is basically just nature giving the middle finger to mankind. Again, this is an isolated house, a manor. There's like no civilization around. There's other small islands with some few people there, but basically nature's fighting back. We got frogs, we got lizards, we got snakes, we got alligators, we got birds, we got nature all ganging up on all these humans and these families because of like the pollution that's been happening and like all the waste that's being thrown. So these frogs, the nature has a reason to be, pissed off. And what I like about this movie is that like Ray Milland is so unbothered by all these terrible things that nature and these animals are doing to fight back against the family. And they get picked off one by one. But we do get a young, shirtless Sam Elliott throughout this movie, which is pretty entertaining. And I do like the animals that fight back and have the kill scenes with them. They're a little over the top and ridiculous. It's a little goofy. But I do really enjoy it. And again, I am afraid of a lot of animals, especially like frogs and lizards and snakes. So, putting that in a recipe, because they're just all over the place in this movie, it just makes it absolutely terrifying to me. You would not see any of this type of activity in the city. And I'm thankful for that. That's why I want to live in cities more than like ever wanting to get a small little, manor on an island with a bunch of swampland. That just sounds miserable to me. But if you have not checked out Frogs, you can get it through Kino. I highly recommend you check it out as well. It's a very entertaining, slippery movie. And next is another modern horror movie talking about like swamps and the outdoors. This is a movie that's POV from a killer's perspective through a forest, all isolated. I am talking about the hit In a Violent Nature. Imagine a Friday the 13th movie where we got the point of view only from Jason. That is In a Violent Nature. It's a slow walk watching this person, this being, carry out, heinous activities through his point of view throughout the forest. We literally hear him walking. I can hear the bushes being brushed against his legs. He's probably gotten poison ivy, another fear, and he's just taking a nice little nature walk, and from time to time dismembering the limbs of somebody he comes across. This is a truly unique, appreciative, inventive, and just entertaining horror movie. This movie got a lot of flack because people are like saying, oh, we're just watching this person walk, but it's kind of part of the charm and the fun and really soaking in the atmosphere of these movies, because even though we love the Friday the 13th movies, do we really go and pause and go, man, look at Camp Crystal Lake, look how crazy that looks? I don't really, but with this In a Violent Nature, it made me appreciate even more. And again, there's no isolation, and when you're just begging for some people to come and help, but these poor teenagers are just being stalked mercilessly, and I don't even feel safe near the end of the movie for our characters as well because of the isolation of the forest. So yeah, when we talk about isolation and rural backcountry horror movies, this is one that really sticks out to me. This is why I don't want to go camping, I think, anymore. It's movies like this. So if you've seen In a Violent Nature, let me know your thoughts about it down below. Are you a defender, or are you kind of one of those it's a walking simulator horror movies? Let me know down in the comments below. Coming up next is another modern horror movie. This is one that people did not care for, but man, I absolutely enjoyed. This is 2024's Salems Lot. Now, this is a small rural town, Jerusalem's Lot, in Maine. Of course, it's a Stephen King adaptation. But these small towns always have something going wrong, and that's why I try to avoid them. But in Salem's Lot, basically, a writer comes back to his hometown to write for his next book, falls for a local girl there, and then realizes one of the creepy homes that he grew up in was purchased by a immigrant outsider who actually turns out to be a vampire. And the vampire's goal is basically to turn Salem's Lot into its own little kitchen. When it gets hungry, it'll come out at night. It'll ask to come in to your house and draw your blood, that whole thing. The whole town gets infected. It's very entertaining. I absolutely love this movie. I thought it was really, really great. I haven't not seen the Tobe Hooper original, but I did really like this one. I'm surprised people did not care for it. But when we talk about small towns and like a cult mindset or like a small town mindset, this movie has a lot of that, to the point where I kind of disliked some of the characters at points because they're just from a small town and my ideals and my way of life is completely different than theirs. So I obviously I'm going to disagree. But also, it just shows how easy it is to take advantage of a small town. I know it's vampires and those things do not exist, but you know, it didn't take very much to get that small town under his thumb, so to speak. So I do really enjoy Salems Lot, and it's one of those things where it's like, you never know what's going on in these backwoods towns. So, you know, steer clear. And if somebody asks to come in at night, you know, never let them in. So there you go, 2024's Salems Lot. Now, here's a deep cut movie. Here's a movie that takes place in the forest with camping with your friends, trying to do dumb stuff. This is a great time. This is a movie you have to seek out. You can actually get it through Vinegar Syndrome. This is 1989's Hell's Trap. Now, Hell's Trap is actually a Mexican horror action flick. It kind of crosses between like a Friday the 13th and a Predator ripoff movie mixed into one. And it takes place in the woods. It takes place in the forest. It just... Basically, there's a mutant military man who's living there, and he's being hunted by these Mexican teenagers. And they don't know he's there, but he's bearing a Freddy Krueger claw. Yes, a Freddy Krueger claw in like a form of hockey mask. He turns into the Predator, basically, and starts to hunt them down one by one. Again, he's kind of a mutant. He's gone mad. And it's kind of like a stalker horror movie in some ways. I really enjoyed watching this movie. This was a random blind watch, you know, Vinegar Syndrome movie, which I highly recommend you check out their catalogs during their sales. There should be one coming up next month for the halfway to Black Friday sale. But you get dirt bikes, you get machetes, you get a claw, you get beer, you get people going into the forest not getting along, that whole thing. It's a very pretty movie for a low budget 80s, you know, cheese movie, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to, you know, make a tent, and I don't want to be out in the woods being chased around by a maniac that we didn't know was there. That just sounds terrifying and scary to me. So this movie is actually insane, but it has a small little charm to it. It's actually very enjoyable. I love the characters in this as well, especially the friend that is Charlie. You know, justice for Charlie in this movie. But if you like 80s cheesy movies that are actually kind of cool and fun, then this would definitely be the movie for you. Now, the final movie on this list is a movie I absolutely love. It's a sequel movie to an iconic classic horror movie as well. But this just shows like the brutality of small towns, small mind mindsets, and just like nature running amok as well. These backwoods, rural towns, I swear to you. But it's all kind of nestled perfectly in this 90s horror movie. This is 1992's Pet Sematary 2. The premise of the story is Edward Norton's character Jeff and his dad moved to this town called Ludlow, where the pet cemetery is, because the mother and wife actually passed away. He starts a new school there, and the neighborhood kids are picking on him except one, this boy who has a dog named Zoe, whose stepfather is Clancy Brown. And this small town, like, these kids do whatever they want. There's no supervision. There's no authority really to stop these kids from doing terrible things and picking on Edward Furlong and his friend. Clancy Brown is actually the police chief as well, who had a crush on his said mother as well. Just an absolute top tier performance of just being a dirtbag in this movie. But the small town mindset and just like no one's safe from the terrorization here. Or the small town, basically this movie is an example of the small town mindset of like, just the dirtbag, grossness of some shady characters, and it's just enjoyable. And then you throw in a pet cemetery when Zoe does die and comes back to life from the pet cemetery to start terrorizing people. You not only get a creature feature, but you also get a small town horror, which is Clancy Brown, and he turns into a zombie as well. This is an absolutely entertaining movie. This is like one of those things where it's like, oh, I'd love to go here, but not live here type of movies. You know, I do like the environment here, but I would never want to live in a small town like Ludlow. This sounds terrible. But yeah, I highly recommend Pet Sematary 2. If you love the original, I think 2 still stands shoulders with it. I really enjoy it. And you get a really fun 90s montage, I think with Limp Bizkit at the end too. But there you go. There's my top 10 rural horror movies that will make you be so thankful that you live in a big city with lots of people and city traffic to distract you from the forest, the bugs, and mutated slasher creature people. If you like more video lists like this, let me know down in the comments below. If you are new and you like these types of videos, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We'd love to see new faces in the comment sections and love to hear what your thoughts are as well down in the comments below. But that'll do it for us here at Figure Out Films. I'm your host as always, Chris, and remember, if you are not watching rural horror movies, do you really care about cinema? Other than that, we'll see you next time.